Numerous members in the legal field have welcomed the appointment of Western Cape High Court Judge Owen Rogers to the Constitutional Court bench. President Cyril Ramaphosa made the announcement yesterday and described Rogers as a highly experienced judge. For more on his appointment, we can speak then to the incoming Justice Owen Rogers himself. Very good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for being on the program tonight. So how are you feeling 24 hours since it was confirmed that you were indeed headed to the Constitutional Court?
Well, it came as a bit of a shock to me yesterday, and I've had an avalanche of calls and messages, and I'm very honoured by the President's choice, but also gratified by all the congratulations I've received from quite a wide field.
And what do you hope that your term will bring to the Constitutional Court, especially at a time when it's become such contested terrain?
Yes. The process of the hearing itself, I think, is important. I know people concentrate on the outcomes of controversial cases, but I think we must start with the way the Constitutional Court hears cases to start with. Section 34 of the Constitution gives everyone the right to a fair public hearing, and there is constitutional value to society in the very way that the Constitutional Court conducts its business. It already has, in my view, a strongly entrenched culture of being courteous and polite to litigants and to lawyers. That is something I fully subscribe to, and I think it's important that the public see that process in action. But in regard to what I may bring, I think, again, your viewers must remember that the Constitutional Court sits with all its judges. That's between 8 and 11 judges in every case. So it is not as if one person can have a decisive or dramatic impact. But after a hearing has been completed, there's a lot of deliberation between the judges, mainly by way of exchanges of emails where views about the case are debated. That is a very important process, and it's vital that every member of the court engages very actively and intellectually in that process. And I think I am known as a person with an independent mind, and I stand my ground even if people disagree with me. I'm willing to be persuaded. But I think in that process, one might find, for example, that one has a minority view at the beginning of a debate after a hearing. One might bring people round to one's point of view, or, as happens, one gives up one's point of view and is satisfied that somebody else is correct. Mm-hmm. But it's really in that process, that's the engine room, the deliberations that happen afterwards. And I think thorough preparation and active engagement in that process achieves the best outcomes.
I'd like to speak to you about points of view, because one of the things you've been quoted saying during the time of the interview process by the Judicial Service Commission was that you believed that the potential contribution of candidates should trump gender and race considerations. What do you mean by that in a country with inequality that is both gendered and has a very clear racial element?
Well, I think that's a question that's concerned with the policy of the Judicial Service Commission. I've never sat on the Judicial Service Commission, so I was a candidate there, not a commissioner, and they must make their policy choices. But the point I was trying to get across is that in a court which consists only of 11 people, and where one wants the best possible outcomes, one should not necessarily be driven totally by a numbers game. I certainly wouldn't accept that a white person or a man cannot contribute significantly to the upholding of the Constitution and the advancement of the law in cases which concern, for example, indigent people with all sorts of needs and wants in this country.
But do you agree, sir, that in cases where there is a black and woman candidate who's just as qualified, that they should be ahead?
Well, I was interviewed at a time when there were 2 positions advertised. So if the President had been given a shortlist of 5 people, well, then he could have chosen 2. Because only 4 names were given, there will be another set of interviews in October, and the Commission will then have the opportunity to appoint another person. If, for example, as I think is expected, Justice Meyer from the SCA becomes the Deputy Judge President and, say, a woman candidate is appointed in October, then there will be a 6-5 splitting the court. One can't have exact equal numbers because it's an odd-numbered court. But I don't see a difficulty there in regard to gender representation, for example.
Very briefly, Judge, your possible appointment was opposed, even your interviewing. There had been a complaint lodged against you, I believe by Barnabas Kulu, for alleged gross misconduct for refusing to share a bench, they said, with Judge Mushtaq Parker. Is that an issue that's resolved, or will it come back to haunt you think?
I don't believe it will come back to haunt me. I think that complaint was lodged about 15 months ago, and we have yet to be notified of it by the Judicial Service Commission. I happen to know that it was lodged, but the Judicial Service Commission has never asked us for a response to it, and it's a baseless complaint, which can be fully answered, but at this stage nobody's asked us to answer it.
Judge Owen Rogers, soon to be Constitutional Court Justice, good to have your time, so thank you very much.